Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show we're talking about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about season 2 of Ozark. Do note that I'm going to go into full spoilers about the entire season. At first, I'll kind of give my non-spoiler review. I don't know why I said that way. I'll give my non-spoiler review first, and then I'll make a clear-cut point about, where I start talking about spoilers. But non-spoiler review, it was great. I feel like if you love season 1, you're going to love season 2. They do a lot. They did the wonderful things they did in season 1 where a lot of stories played out a way you didn't expect them to. I was sure shocked by a lot of stuff playing out the way they did. And it was a very great season overall. They literally pick up right where season 1 left off, and then they could just kind of hit the ground running, picking up with there. So the Bird family dynamic, I love how it kind of changes over the course of the season. Obviously, I'm not going to go into specifics, obviously, but I think overall it's a very great season. So if you have not seen all of it, or you're wondering if you should see all of it, you should. I don't know. They're literally kind of even for me. Some of the crazy stuff that went down this season kind of made me go, ooh, because I don't know. Like I said, for me, I guess I'll put them about the same. So that's the end of my little quick spoiler-free review. From this point on, I will be entering spoilers. Like I said, this isn't covering the entire season. I'm going to be talking about things out of order, so don't expect me to talk about things in order. So if you have not seen the entirety of season 2 of Ozark, do not listen to this. If you feel like it, you can come back later on after you finish the entire season to hear my thoughts about everything, but don't feel obligated to. So, like I said, from this point on, we are going full spoilers. A crazy ride of a season overall. It's so interesting, the Bird family themselves. I love their dynamic, as I was bringing up in the non-spoilers. It's kind of interesting because it's something Charlotte kind of calls out, because she's it's kind of interesting amongst anyone in her family. It's kind of she's the most normal one, I'd say. I feel like everyone kind of shifted a lot this season. Marty shifted, so did Wendy. Jonah kind of continued his progression, but I feel like Charlotte's the only one that was kind of no, I'm not about this. She has her moments of kind of wilding out, kind of when she stole the book for Wyatt, and she does stuff like this and that, because it's oh, we're a crime family and stuff like that. She's acting out a little bit because it's crazy circumstances they're under. She's the most one to be nah, I'm not about this life. She even tries to get herself emancipated later on. I did not see that coming. Which is so interesting to me, because it's you're all about not telling lies anymore and stuff like that, but you're willing to potentially even go to court to prove hey, I want to emancipate myself that much. It would have involved you going to court to lie, which she didn't want to lie anyway. But I guess the thing is, she knew she put her family in kind of a tough corner. They'd be forced to kind of do it, which is kind of super messed up considering your circumstances, because you should probably also consider, if you go off and get emancipated, the cartels still want to keep an eye on you because, oh, you know too much. They have an inkling that you have some idea. And even if you didn't have an idea, they'd assume you had an idea. But nevertheless, the one who surprised me the most this season was kind of finishing what I was talking about. The fact is, she kind of brings up a lot of things. She brings up the fact is that Jonah is you were willing to kill that dude, and mom literally gave you the nod to do it. And it's you're okay with that, and I don't know why you're so okay with that. That's the most messed up thing. Cause remember in season 1, their parents kind of got on Jonah about him kind of being weird. Charlotte overheard the conversation and told him. It's hearing her talk about him that way probably made him feel that conversation oh, you just think I'm some weirdo. She tried to apologize, but so. But then you do have Jonah kind of going deeper down that route a little bit. Kind of, obviously he starts doing a lot more money laundering. Even at one point, his mom literally went to him to handle it because, Marty was dealing with the whole thing. Obviously I'm breaking all that down, but I feel out of anyone, Wendy super gave into the dark side this season. I thought Wendy handled it great in season 1. Holy shit, did she not handle it fantastically this season? It's kind of interesting because it's Marty is the one who's kind of holding everything together, season 1 and this season, but it's you see that dynamic switch where it's Wendy's the one that's kind of taking charge. She's we need to handle it. She's the one that's kind of compartmentalizing, which Marty did for so long. Interestingly enough, she even admits it later on. She's honestly, I was kind of messed up because I called you out on not being emotional, because he bottles his emotions up, because if he lets them out, he's going to fall apart, is what he was telling to Rachel at one point. I thought that was kind of great. You could tell that's what he was. Like I said, he's trying to compartmentalize everything. But you see Wendy start doing that. Like little by little, everything dealing with Wilkes and all the blackmail she did to like that senator lady. And it's like because of the whole situation with her husband, she's like, "You're disgusting." And she's like, "Well, seeing you, Senator." And I love what Wendy does. And this is major props to the actress who plays her, Laura Linney. She does an amazing job. And that little smile she does anytime like someone's coming at her, she's so calm, cool, and collected. She does a smile. She did season 1, she did it this season. I feel like she did it a lot more this season, especially like when Petty was coming after her. It's like all this stuff. "Oh, you're trying to attack my family. Get the fuck off my property." She's got a smile on her face. I'm like, dude, like seriously, like Wendy really stepped up her criminal game this season, and it was crazy. Mode hardcore this season. Even the thing with Wilkes, they had their little back and forth. It seemed like in the long run, he kind of won out of this situation. I wonder, does that mean we could expect kind of Wendy going more into politics next season? Because that was kind of all set up of like, oh, you should handle this. It seemed like she's going to focus more on the family business, but beyond that, I'm kind of wondering, it's kind of like it kind of might be her wheelhouse as this season kind of showed off for her. So. But just every twist and turn that would come her way, she'd kind of chop it down and hand it herself. I thought it was so interesting the whole blow up she had with Charlotte. It just like she got super pissed off. And Marty's constantly, "I told you not to go see that lawyer. What did you expect? What did you want me to do?" She's like, the fact of the matter, because at one point she's like, he's like, because you don't go there because you'll just get angry. Like you were angrier than you were tonight. She's like, "I wasn't angry. I was right." And just being so adamant and steadfast about it, like the whole Charlotte thing blowing up. And because like I said, the hypocrisy is what got Charlotte, because it's like, you're literally getting on me because I stole a book. You guys are literally laundering money for the cartel. You're terrible people. You're criminals. And you got the nerve to judge me. And so interesting because even Jonah calls her. I was like, "You shouldn't do that. We're a family. We're all in this together." He's like, "What? You're turning on us? What?" That's crazy. And once again, the fact is you're telling that lawyer everything. The last thing you want is the cartel to find out that you've been telling anybody their entire business, because it seemed like she knows a good chunk of what's going down, when Charlotte was explaining it. But for her to get super pissed and start throwing the clothes out there, he's like, "If you want to be emancipated, go and getting all pissed and everything." I was like, "Jeez, man." I think they kind of did an interesting thing with Wendy and Martin, like compared to Jacob and Darlene. I feel like they really played that up this season in a really interesting way of making the comparisons between them. Like this is two criminal couples, and each one their own way of handling this whole business. Because when you look at Marty and Wendy, is definitely a reflection of Jacob and Darlene, especially this season, because Darlene like really kicked it. I did not expect her to be kind of like the crazy person she was. I thought it was all Jacob. It's like, no, I'm assuming when it was all said and done, I guarantee you it was probably, in retrospect now, it's like Darlene was probably the one that cut the baby out of her. I mean, but Darlene was all about keeping the promises and everything, but like now looking at everything, it's like, yeah, she's the one crazy enough to do it. Like she's so upset about the circumstances, but it's like, you set this all in motion the moment you killed Dell. But for her, it's like Jacob making a deal with them and everything, because she felt like they're compromising a lot of their beliefs and their history. Him killing Ash, which she was super pissed about, but it's like that was so they wouldn't have to compromise what they had for themselves. But also killing Ash because Jacob himself knew that the cartel would not be satisfied with anything else other than payback for Dale. Because Helen, which I love that whole Helen's a good surprise character this season. Her popping up. I love that she's not like the most evil person, because she's willing to give people a chance. Like I feel like Dale is on one level and like Helen is like below him, like in the sense of like Helen was willing to give people chances. She's like, "How much do your kids know?" And Marty was like, how much do your kids know? And she kind of was just like, "It's not about my kids." She was willing to give chances, trying to work around stuff, because she's like, yeah, that whole the cartel coming after the Snells, that wasn't me. That's how the cartel responds if it like I was kind of left out of the loop. Like I said, she was so willing to give a chance and stuff like that. So I thought was kind of pretty neat. And I also love Helen just constantly throughout the entire season shitting on the Ozark, because she's like, "I hate this place. I mean, it's like, oh, this place is fine and everything. I can't wait to get home. But in all honesty, I really fucking hate this place." I thought that was kind of pretty neat. But yeah, like they would have only accepted blood for blood. Dale's dead, so it's like they needed compensation. So him killing Ash, he later on tries to tell her, but she doesn't really see it his way. And I thought it was so interesting him calling her out for it, because she does have a tendency, even this season, to be very, very rash and angry for whatever reason. I guess that Ash thing did not sit well with her. It's that, and then a culmination of everything, you know, the deal with the cartel and everything. I kind of figured their story would end up the way it did. I thought it was kind of interesting, the comparison of like, oh, we got to actually see where Darlene and Jacob's story first started, and that same episode she ended up killing him. Like, I was like, oh man, he's leaving the knife, he's getting a knife. I'm like, ooh. But then also, like, the moment she handed him the cup, I'm like, she poisoned him, because we already know poisoning people is their go-to thing. So I had a feeling, I was like, is it going to be like a thing? It happens at the same time. But I love that Wendy calls her out later on, because she's like, yeah, Jacob's dead, so his last wish is that this whole casino thing doesn't happen. She's like, but your husband was so for it. It's kind of interesting. You said your husband died this morning, and yet you're here right now talking about this whole conversation. So I thought that was kind of interesting. The way Marty got him out of jail in that particular moment. I mean, God, I'm all over the place, but I do apologize by making it like, oh yeah, the bones come back, representing like his ancestors, so making it seem like all the bones they found, because obviously they had people, the medical examiner kind of lied, because they switched stuff around and made it so that the bones came back as related to the snails, and so they were kind of let off. But Petty was on his game this season. For one, I wasn't expecting Rachel to pop up at all. I was like, oh, I guess she's just not going to be in this season. I was like, nope. She plays a part in it. She's getting high, kind of got caught in that junkie role. I love it. This is one of my favorite moments. It's when in that scene where she reveals Petty to be the one that's like, that guy that shows up here all the time. Yeah, he was connected to Russ. He might be the one that rats you out and everything. And he was on the other side. I was like screaming and super pissed and everything, because during that whole thing, like, Marty was calling her out for potentially being a rat, because it's like, yeah, our businesses happen to suffer right around the same time you come back and everything. I was like, dude, and she gets super defensive about it. She's like, this and that, how dare you, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, it's always interesting. I love that when people are caught in a lie and they're being very defensive, they get loud and go into the attack like that. I was like, that's super good. It's super convincing. It actually kind of worked out to a certain extent. I wasn't actually expecting her to ever tell Marty that she actually was, the one kind of snitching on him like that. I didn't expect that. I mean, it's kind of interesting because the whole thing with Ruth comes out, because like technically she was the rat, because she was technically ratting everybody's business out to Rachel, but unknowingly, so it doesn't really count. But I always kind of felt like that Marty and her thing were going to happen. I mean, it never happened. I mean, they kissed and everything, sure, but like nothing happened. You could tell all season one, you're kind of like, I kind of get the feeling that's where their story was going to go, and never did. But for, like, I thought the moment she was telling Marty to stop, and it was like, oh, like, he's never going to find out. But for her to open up her shirt, be like, oh, I'm being mic'd. He even asking him for help later on to get her from underneath Petty, have her go to the cartel. He's like, yo, you saw what happened to Ruth. She wasn't wearing a mic, and I vouched for her, and they still tortured her. Wait, that was fucking wild, dude. Like I said, just everything's spiraling out of control this season. It's kind of interesting that when it's all said and done, like, Rachel is walking away from this thing unscathed, it seems like, no matter what. Because Wendy had been suspicious of her the entire time, and it's like, oh yeah, she stole like 300 grand from us, even told Charlotte to keep an eye on her. And when Charlotte, like, Rachel's trying to talk to her and everything, she's like, shut up, don't talk to me, and walked away. And then that's when she confronted Marty. She's like, oh, your wife is treating me like shit, and so was your daughter. Like, we're all in this together. Talking about, she used to think that Marty was cool, but it turns out you and your family just a bunch of pieces of shit. Like I said, I just loved her being on the defense. But Marty did ultimately get her out. Because I think in Marty's eyes, after everything was all said and done, like, enough people's lives were ruined. Because everything he legitimately did. It's not like, you know, he's not like a Walter White where it's like, oh, he starts getting into, he enjoys it. It's like, no, everything he's doing is about making sure him and his family stay alive. That's all he's ever been concerned about. Which is kind of interesting to me, because it seems like that might be the direction they're taking Wendy. It seems like she's kind of turned into a Walter White for herself. It's like, no, this is the life we have, and we should have. This is who I've always wanted to be, you know? I've accepted myself as who I am, trying to even convince the kids that they should do the same, you know? But that's exactly my point. When I was talking about Marty too, is like the fact is he ran it back. Like I said, he compartmentalized a lot of it, and it wasn't necessarily 100% a bad guy. He did whatever he needed to do, no matter how shitty, just to make sure that his family would survive. Even going as far as blackmailing Petty about his mom, and it's like, why? Oh, do you feel good about that? Blackmailing and threatening a sick old woman? He's like, no. I don't feel good about it at all. Like, he's never felt good about this. You have Mason calling him the devil and stuff like that. Like, legitimately, that's a go-to thing this season. And be like, oh, you're a horrible, terrible person. Like, people constantly reminding them. Because maybe I don't think on any level Marty thinks of himself as a good person. He's just trying to make the best out of a very shitty situation. And I thought it was kind of an interesting line from Buddy where he was basically like, you're trying to satisfy and make everyone happy. You can't do that. It's impossible. You need to stop reacting, and essentially you need to act and get everyone else reacting to what you're doing, But like I said, I'm circling around, so I do apologize. But you got your boy Petty, like, he was super happy once he got the news. He was gloating in front of everybody's faces, brought the whole family out, and he sits down in front of Marty. He's like, he's such a smug asshole so much of the season, because he's like, oh, I got this all figured. I got this and that, going to take down the family and stuff like that, threatening people. I'm like, yo. Then, like, there's a whole thing between him and Evans where it's like, Evans is like, yo, dude, you need to calm down. We're so close. We need to make sure we go by the book. He's like, man, shut up. You don't run this game. You're not the boss. But you follow the leader here and stuff like that. And then it's talking about stop giving Rachel drugs and stuff because you don't want her to die like your last person. And he was kind of like, oh, yeah, like, you're just mad because that big, beautiful bear fucked me hard 50 times harder than you ever could, kind of throwing that in his face and stuff like. It's kind of interesting. I think that's one of the last times we saw Evans this season, wasn't it? That's kind of interesting. That was kind of crazy. He was literally listening to the recording of Russ and Ruth so he could masturbate to it just because he missed Russ that much. It's kind of crazy. It's like, yo, you were in love, dude, which is crazy to me. Because as we saw his past two relationships, like the one we saw in the recap in the past in season 1, and his relationship with Evans did not end well. I keep calling him Evans. Is his last name even Evans? I don't remember. The other cop, the one who had a relationship with Petty, I don't remember. I'm blanking on it right now. Like I said, I'm actually surprised he actually didn't show up in the season this much. He popped up a lot more in season 1. I thought that's kind of interesting. The whole way they handled the Snell's family was kind of neat. Finding out that, like, technically the moment they flooded all their land, technically it belonged to the U.S. government because it kind of became connected to the Missouri River, which is federal government land. Because that means, like, all the, what was it, riparian? Whatever the word was. It's like, it means they have rights to the land, even that below this water. The lake. No one really thinks about the land below the lake, but the moment he flooded their land, that put it in their spot. And kind of touching on the whole, like, Darlene and Jacob thing, I kind of thought she was going to kill him a lot sooner than she was. I was like, that's why I kept freaking. I was like, oh, is she about to kill him? She's got that knife in her hands. Like, is she about to stab him in the kitchen? Turned out not to be the case at all, but still. Also, the fact is she was kind of baby crazy this season was kind of, I didn't expect that to be a storyline either. Then her getting Zeke at the end, that whole Mason thing, I didn't see that turning out the way it did. The fact of the matter is him kidnapping Wendy. I was like, who was it? Who kidnapped her? And it's like, Mason? Because he thought she was threatening. It's like, oh, you threatened to take away my child. It's like, no, idiot, I warned you. Because it's something that even comes up in conversation. It's like, you were literally warned at every turn, but you wouldn't listen. It's like what Marty was telling him at the end. It's like all that was sacrificed to make sure that you and Grace were okay. Because even he admitted later on, it's like, I killed Grace. She tried to tell me to go back in the water, but I was too proud. Then the whole like back and forth between him and Wendy, that caught me off guard because she kind of lowered his guard and everything, and then tried to run the moment she had a chance. Did not see that coming. I was like, oh, I thought you were just. It's like, oh no, you are literally just waiting for your chance. And she's like, what do you expect me to do, Mason? It was just kind of a reflex. I just couldn't help but do that. It's like, I wasn't expecting that to be your response. It's actually interesting because we learned a little bit more about Wendy this season, because last season it came up a little bit about her brother, but she brings it up this season where she kind of had a problem with her brother because of his manic depression. So she always felt like she was always being bound to him. Like her life was kind of getting dragged down because of that. She kind of resented him to some degree because of that. But then, like, she lost a child and she kind of entered that depression herself. And she kind of talked about understanding that depression. Was that to, I think that was to Blake's wife, wasn't it? I also didn't expect him to kill himself. I was also expecting that reporter to pop up a lot more than she did. It just kind of, she popped up a little here, dropping some information and stuff like that. She has some good sources because she found out, it's like, oh yeah, is it true that you and Wilkes like lobbied a lot of this stuff, blah, 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 blah. It's like, oh yeah. And then she found out about like, Blake's wife suing and stuff like that. I was like, man, that reporter, was it Janet? Super on the ball in that situation. I was halfway expecting her to pop up more. Maybe that could be a character we potentially see more of in the future, especially stuff running around in the Ozark, things going as wild and crazy as they are. But the whole thing about Marty killing Mason, I thought that was kind of a beautiful like turn to his character, because that was the first time, for one, that Marty had ever killed anyone, which is interesting because that kind of ties in, I guess, to like Jonas had his first, not Jonas, Jonah. Ugh, I did that before. But Jonah had his first kill, so maybe that was kind of a little foreshadowing of that event. But it's like he ended up killing Mason because Mason literally lost his mind after everything he'd been through. He's like, oh, Zeke, what did you do to him? You did something to him, kind of calling him the devil and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, I'm going to take Whitney. I'm about to call her Whitney. God, I'm all over the place. Sorry. Wendy. God, I'm taking Wendy because she tells the truth when you're not around. And he's talking about all the stuff that they sacrificed to make sure that him and Grace were okay. And ended up having to shoot him to make sure that he didn't hurt Wendy. I mean, she's the one that kind of stabbed him first, but it was definitely Marty that shot him. And it's like, at that moment, you saw Marty unravel at different points, but this is the first time you ever saw him unravel to such an extent. Like, it changed everything. Because, like, it's what, she talks about later on, but Wendy was like, you're being a lot more emotional, even though that's what I told you to do. Because once again, he tried to help out Rachel's situation, because for the first time, because he even said it himself, he thought they were different from like the bad people they work for, which Wendy, I keep doing that. Wendy is like, yeah, we are. Which he's like, no, we're not. Like, because now we're just starting to cross over to that lane. They're just doing more and more bad stuff. At what point can you stop being like, it's just our circumstances that we're not, that at what point is it just, we're simply doing bad stuff because we're terrible people? Because he even talks about that too. Like when, Wendy got pissed at the whole Charlotte situation. Cause it's like, I agree with her. Like, I think she's right. Cause she's like, why do you always take her side? Because it's like, I think she's right. I think I can't remember what the exact wordings were, but essentially it's like, we're a bunch of criminals. We're not fit parents. We're not even a family. We're just a bunch of criminals, which is like I said, from top to bottom fills the roles for everyone. Cause like I said, Jonas kind of got his like a money laundering thing going on, but Marty kind of turning into the emotional voice of reason. Like, cause I wasn't kind of expecting that because he was always pushing. I mean, cause in the long run, his thought process has never changed. Everything he's doing is for the purpose of saving his family. So it's not like he's changed in any shape or form, but still, it's sad. We ended up losing Buddy, this season, but, always kind of giving like words of advice, telling Wendy that story to basically say like, think you're going to die today, it makes tomorrow sweeter. So the fact of the matter is, keep your shit together today, because you can always fall apart tomorrow, because you need your shit together now, because the whole Marty getting arrested and everything being questioned. And I love the twist, the moment he was kind of like, oh shit, when Helen walked in as his lawyer. I completely forgot about like, oh, Helen did kind of have her badass moment, like kind of like, ooh, bad guy moment. I guess was kind of like when her and that guy got the surveillance tape proving that like Ash was the one that behind this, like the whole Dale situation. She's no idiot. She knows how to look for things. She knows like, okay, there's something going on here. And she got to the bottom of it and found out about the Dale situation. So, but I also appreciate kind of going back to Marty. The fact is that even though he's kind of the way he is, he still has his moments of being like, I will fucking kill you. It's like, after the whole Darlene situation, she got Zeke and everything. He's like, if you ever touch my kid again, I will fucking kill you. It's like, give me back my wife immediately, or I'll fucking kill you. It's like, that's Marty's kind of number one. Like when the time comes for it, Marty really steps up in a big way. But kind of getting back to Buddy, it's kind of sad. It's kind of interesting because like she made he made Wendy promise that when it's all said and done that she'll get her family out of this. And it turns out at the very end she's like, no, we're going to stay here. This is the safest place we can be. We've got roots here and everything like that. Like I said, it's crazy how okay with everything Wendy's become to the max. It's fucking scary. And once again, that in itself is setting up a very similar relationship to Darlene and Jacob. Because for him, it's like, what do you do when the bride that stole your breath now is your wife that makes you hold your breath out of terror? I was like, oh, that's such a beautiful line, befitting considering the thing, because like legitimately Jacob was scared of Darlene, because even after he had gotten shot, he's like, please don't do anything stupid. She's like, oh no, hush and let me handle all this. It's like, oh boy. I love that whole thing about Buddy and Frank from the Kansas City Mom, and it's just kind of like, and at the last minute he's like, okay, so probably before we go in there, I should probably let you know that Frank doesn't like me because he always thought I fucked his wife. And just, yeah, and Marty being like, yep, that's great to know. And then later on, even laughed about it. He brought it up in a moment, kind of showed you the, like, balls that Buddy had, because he brought it up in conversation just to piss Frank off, and they're both laughing about it. And then when they're leaving, Marty's like, so I have one question. He's like, you're wondering, did I have sex with her? A gentleman doesn't really speak on it, but he's like, all I'll say is she had a specific tattoo on her thigh. Which is like, whoa. And then him burning the poppy field. I was like, I didn't expect that to turn into what it did, because I was like, oh man, you burned the poppy field. I was like, okay, there's nothing there then. It's like, oh, there's remnants of it. Is that going to be a problem? It's like, no, it's too burned for that to really be an issue. Most of it burned, so I think it's okay. But it's like, oh no, they're digging up bodies. I was like, oh, is that Dale's body? It's like, no, is it going to turn out to be Ash's body? But then I was like, no, it can't be Ash's body. For one, it can't be Dale's body, because we know that wasn't like nearby. But it also can't be Ash's body, because those bodies are like bones and stuff like that. And it turns out it's like, nope, they've been buried there for a while. It's like, it seems like that was Darlene's idea, apparently, burying the bodies in the poppy fields. I guess it's kind of like, oh, maybe a feed the poppies, kind of like give them a little more nutrients, or it's just kind of like, oh, who's going to come looking for it in our poppy fields? It's like, never thought about the circumstances of, oh, let's burn, that's going to get burned down. So I even like that moment Buddy had with Marty, kind of playing more into Marty's aspect of compartmentalizing. He's like, yeah, he's like, you're kind of a dick because you never came to visit me or whatever. And like, Marty's like, I love you too. But he's like, I understand why you did. He's like, because everyone processes it in a different way. But it actually hit them in a hard way, like the whole thing. Like, especially it hit Jonah very hard, because like, he even says himself, it's like, he was my best friend. In all honesty, the only friend I ever had. And I'll take our secrets to the grave. And it's like, yo. But also Marty visiting him, like, at the morgue and everything. That was kind of nice. He went down to talk to him and see him one last time. Because it almost seemed like he didn't care. Like, it came to conversation about, like, how he kind of puts blinders on about stuff. But he, like I said, he just didn't have time to be emotional because he knew everything would fall apart if he did. And on the other side of things, there's the Langmore thing. Wyatt's whole storyline about him being, like, trying to figure out, like, because Charlotte literally did what her dad said. He was like, I don't want you getting high because I don't know if you're going to run your mouth off to people. And she literally does it like either that same episode or an episode later, because she ends up letting it slip. Like, oh yeah, me and my dad, we were there at the Blue Cat Lodge when that whole thing went down. It's like, wait, you were there? Yeah, we were working. And it's like, and then he later on confronts him about it, because it's like, no, like, I read the reports. None of it said that you were there. And it's like, Charlotte messed up big time. But it's like, as you're a teenager, you're kind of meant to keep all these lies and stuff like that straight. So it's a hard situation, but still, it's just kind of interesting. He was literally warning you about that, and you literally went and did the thing he told you not to do, and that was run your mouth when you got high. And so for such a long time throughout the season, Wyatt kept thinking like, oh, like, Marty killed my dad, so why should I care too much? It's like, I care about Charlotte, sure. Yeah, Marty's helping me out, but if he's helping me out with, like, me getting kicked out of school, or like not trying to rat on me and Cade for robbing the strip club, it's because he knows he killed my dad. That's what he's just trying to be apologetic for that. That's what that was all about. he held on to that for so long because that was kind of one of the things keeping him from leaving. And I like that aspect too, that they like brought Russ into this in the sense of like Russ would kind of pop up as just something kind of in Wyatt's head, especially moments where he's kind of at his most lost. His dad would pop up and kind of talk to him. They have full-blown conversations and stuff. I thought that was kind of a nice aspect to it. All the while, you know, you have Ruth trying to do everything she can, trying to make sure things work out for Wyatt in the long run, the whole situation of trying to get him into Mizzou, trying to get him off to college, he'd have a better life, because it's like, you're not a Langmore, because that whole like essay he wrote about like, oh, feeling like he's cursed, that the Langmores are cursed, that even Ruth started believing that, because it's just kind of like things never work out for them. It's just the Langmores are just stuck in this shitty situation. It doesn't make it any better her dad coming back into the picture. I figured he'd be one of the biggest issues this season, which he was in a lot of regards, but he had moments where he was kind of like, oh, very concerning, a very caring dad, but in other moments he'd be a complete and utter asshole, which I shouldn't be too surprised about, because every time we saw him season 1, he was a complete and utter asshole, especially when it came to Ruth. Kind of didn't treat her right. All the times he laid hands on her, kind of smacked her around this season, is kind of like, yeah, he's a big piece of shit. Kind of getting mad at her. It's like, oh, how do you not know about the Marty situation? And it's like, oh, you've been messing around with me, little girl, like, oh, you're not going to kill me, blah, 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 blah. So it's kind of like, you suck. You definitely ain't going to be winning no Parent of the Year award. But I also like the fact is that her relationship with Marty kind of got a little messed up this season, because it's also her dad being there kind of talking in her ear, like Marty trying to legitimize a lot of stuff so they can help with this whole casino thing, because it's like, oh, like she can't be working at the lickety split, like can't be the face of it, because, you know, can't have a felon working there. So to make everything look legitimate, they hire Sam, who is now a motivational speaker. I thought was kind of pretty neat. I love the fact is that he ended up meeting his girl, Jade, aka was it Melissa, there, and just fell in love and everything, because he's almost kind of like, oh, if things didn't work out the way they did, he wouldn't have been able to meet her. And Wendy's kind of like, yeah, I guess you wouldn't have. Yeah, that kind of worked out for you in the end. And Sam always, like, he literally, how many times did he get pistol whipped? Not pistol whipped, just hit in general this season. He got hit twice by Kay. The first time he wouldn't pay that dancer, and then when he came in there with Wyatt with the mask on and just like robbed the place, he popped him then too. So poor Sam. But I mean, it's kind of nice to see things are kind of looking up for him. I'm assuming like he's still going to be the one running the place still. I mean, it's kind of like he's running things, kind of the face of everything, but then like Ruth is kind of handling things, like really handling things behind scene. It seems like Sam doesn't know the full extent of everything being like a little shady and stuff like that. He's kind of like the ignorant character in the situation. But you gotta give mad props to Ruth coming through in the end, kind of handling stuff. It's like, Marty got arrested. Let me look for some stuff. Put away anything that could be incriminating. Because she knows Marty goes down. It means taking her down. She goes down too. But at the same time too, it's because legitimate in her own way, she does care about Marty. They even kind of set it up early on, because it's like, Cade's like, he's not your daddy, I am, essentially. Because Ruth kind of relied on him a lot, because like, oh, he relies on me, I have responsibilities and stuff like that, getting a boat. I love that situation, how she handled the boat with, what was it, DeVoe, like kicking the wheelchair dude over and then kicking his son in the nuts. And she's like, yeah, and because you being an asshole about everything, I'm gonna take $50,000 off of it. And it's like, yo. She's a freaking boss, dude. Like I said, it's crazy. Because I think this, and I thought it was kind of a powerful thing they did this season too, was making her break down. Like I said, it's kind of similar to Marty. You don't really see Marty kind of break down a lot in his own way, but like to see her like down in tears and stuff, like we never saw her like that. Well, we saw it last season when she killed Russ and Boyd, but that's about it. Like the whole situation of feeling like she let her dad down, that's kind of so sad that she felt like so... Like anytime she messed up, because of the whole situation with the cartel coming after her. Two things. Once again, major reasons to say, fuck you, Petty. Because for one, he was like, oh yeah, did you know that she tried to kill you? It's like, what? Yeah, I'm the one that saved you. Your son will know about it because he pulled a gun on me. Two, the fact is that he put her in that situation to be kidnapped by the cartel, because he made it seem like, oh, we're all buddy. Oh yeah, they're going to be coming after you now because they think you're talking to us. And Marty hesitated when he was like, oh, I trust you. It's like, why'd you hesitate? It was like, well, I recently found out she tried to kill me, so. But he tried to vouch for her. But he ended up apologizing for it later, because he was like, yeah, I should have stood up for you when I had the chance. I didn't look out for your best interest, so I do apologize. But like I said, it's just kind of like that dual side of things. Like maybe if Cade wasn't around, things between Ruth and Marty would have been good. But she was just kind of not in the loop in a lot of stuff. But still, like I said, she's trying to balance everything, try to keep Wyatt on the right path, but he's getting in trouble because he defended Jonah and he got suspended for it. It's like, but Jonah only got suspended a week for the whole like doing stuff for people thing, like, you know, doing homework and stuff like that. But because of the fight, you know, because it's that whole thing of being a Langmore, you see it even more this season of like, oh, Langmores, oh, it's them damn Langmores. Like, especially in Wyatt's case, like he can't escape his family, and part of me feels like maybe there's just no point. Why even bother trying? You know, like I said, like Ruth was reading the essay. It's like, dude, it literally sounds like you're about to off yourself, you know? Even you know, because she was at a point, she just kind of let the Bobcats go. That was kind of like a symbolic thing in a sense. Because it's like, yeah, the Langmores, they're kind of trapped where they are. And it's like kind of letting the Bobcats decide for themselves. Because it's like Ruth herself is like, I will always be a Langmore. I can't escape this destiny. It's kind of how she started to feel after a while. So I think on some level, she was hoping maybe if I can at least free these guys, then maybe they can escape this life that's kind of been set up for them. I also wasn't expecting Ruth. It constantly would come up, but she never took the time to actually tell Wyatt the truth until she finally did, and she kind of laid it all out because Cade was going to take his tuition to run after he killed Petty. Like, I was like, I love that moment of him being like, oh shit, because he hits Petty with like that box and he's like, oh fuck, and then proceeds to hit him repeatedly over and over again. Because the moment he said like, oh, don't worry mom, I'm coming out to live here, I was like, okay, so either something's going to happen where the cartel kills your mom and you die as well, or you're just going to die on your own. Turns out he just simply died on his own and everything. I was like, oh, you're such a garbage person, Cade. I mean, I guess it kind of worked out in the end because it's like I said, he just was an asshole all season, kind of messing everything up. Like, it's like Ruth was like, I literally gave you $1,000 in your pocket. I got you a job and you literally just went into this place, robbed it. And he's like, oh yeah, I robbed it just because I can. Nobody tells me what to do. It's hard to say like whether everything is just because he's high and drunk all the time. Maybe it's a combination of that. Once again, he's just an asshole naturally, but I think all that combined together, you know, just terrible combination. But I do like that Marty was planning on leaving everything into Ruth's hand because he's like, I trust you. Like, if I didn't think you were ready, I wouldn't be trusting my family's life in your hand by having you take over the operations and stuff. I also love that twist of like, oh, he went to the mausoleum that they built for Buddy. I was like, he's saying goodbye. He's saying stuff. And it's like, oh, that's where the money is. In particular, we later on find out the $43 million. Also, let's talk about the fact is that Charlotte taking that $10,000 when she did. I thought that was kind of crazy. And splitting it with Jonah. And it's kind of interesting because he seemed like he was more in control about everything than she was, because she was the one that's just kind of a little out there. I mean, like I said, to be fair, she's the most normal person amongst her family, but like her money being found out, and then like Wendy being like, you wanted to talk about this making you grow up too fast? Well, grow the fuck up, because it's game day, you know? And then Jonah like setting everything in motion by like creating like that fake account and everything, and laundering the money and stuff. Like, it's so crazy. One other thing I was surprised about when it came to this season was Marty's plan to get out. I wasn't expecting it because I figured when it was all said and done, it's like, oh, they got this plan that once the casino goes up, they're gonna leave. It's basically everything gets up, and like I said, the plan that, like, you know, you had Buddy being like, yo, when the time comes, yo, just get out with your family. But and then, like, you know, we had Marty setting everything up, you know, Ruth taking over the operation, not telling Charlotte or Jonah about the fact that it's like, oh, we're going to bounce. He only tells Wendy. And maybe in retrospect, that was probably his grave mistake, because he thought, like, you know, because like he made that decision because it's like, oh, I didn't have time to argue with you, which she uses against him later on. But it's like, if he hadn't told her the truth and probably made this like a last minute thing, what would have happened? I mean, you know, like I said, none of his plans work out, but to a certain degree, a lot of his plans do work out. Like, it's just like there's a lot of contributing factors. So I'm curious if it had worked out, would it have? Like, because you already knew, like, when it was all said and done, like, I thought, like, the casino would fail or something, but it's like, if the casino failed, that would mean everybody was dead. But it's like, you knew something was going to go wrong, but I didn't expect it to be Wendy, like, you know, going dark side like that, to be that end all be all for it, you know? So I am curious, like, if he hadn't told Wendy at the last minute that probably if they had never had that conversation, if she never had that one-on-one conversation with Helen about having her gratitude and stuff like that, I guess that kind of cemented it more in her head of like, oh yeah, we're for one, it's like we can benefit from this because like we never have to worry about struggling. Everything's kind of going forward. Obviously, everything's going to be like a more like, just got to keep everything going forward, but things kind of sustain themselves because she's even saying like later on, it's like, oh, you can just handle the numbers and the stuff like that, but like obviously we can have lives. Charlotte and Jonah can, you know, they've already built roots here and stuff like that, which in, you know, Jonah's case, the only friend he ever had is gone. Charlotte, so that's a whole situation with Wyatt, which is a big question like what he, you know, plans on doing, but I'll get to that in a second. So I did like that the final shot of the season is just kind of like oh yeah, picture of them and Marty just struggling to smile, you know. So it's also interesting because there was a part of my brain that was wondering if like on some level Wendy might rat him out because the fact is he had that plan and everything, which is like of course she wouldn't do that because she knows that would be killing it. But once again, that might be something we see in the future where she kind of turns into more Darling, where it's kind of like, you know, like I said, it's just interesting that Jacob had that conversation with Marty, and now it's literally happening to him. I do like that kind of reflection. It's like now Marty probably might start thinking like his future is the same thing as Jacob's. Like, you know, Wendy might shift that. I don't know. She says, I love you. And he kind of says the same thing. She's like, Marty. He's like, I love you too. I love you. So it's kind of like, oh, we'll see. Also, her setting Kate up, I think, you know, that's even more implications of her going down the dark side, like handling things like that. Because even Helen tried to be like, okay, do know this, that once you say what you said, there's no pulling it back. She's like, I know. She's like, no, you don't know. Because at this point in time, like, people have died or gotten hurt subsequently, but indirectly by their actions. But this would be the first time, like much like Marty's situation with Mason, where it's like you're more direct. Granted, she didn't pull the trigger herself in this case, but she still set up Cade to die, knowing that that's Ruth's dad. That no matter what their circumstances may be, she still loved her dad. So it's super messed up that you got him killed. But it's just now both of them directly have bodies on their, you know, blood on their hands, because Marty has it more so directly than Wendy, but Helen did say it would change everything about you, like you're looking at yourself, your own reflection, the touch of your own husband. Like we even see that happen with him touching her. She kind of like it caught her off guard, you know. So once again, it's kind of interesting because so far it seems like she's a-okay, but probably in the future we probably see like what that would really do to her, and obviously the bigger wedge that it would drive between the family, especially because Marty was like, Charlotte, if you want to leave, like, kind of emancipate yourself, you 100% got my support, because he knows, like, well, at that time he didn't know about Cade at that point in time, but it's just kind of like his mom Wendy making a choice like that. Let us stay in this situation. I want to get out of this situation. But in her mind, it's like, no, this is the better situation, because it's like I said, we learned quite a bit about her, like her religious background and stuff like that. Especially like those conversations she had with Mason and stuff like that. It's kind of crazy. I didn't know like she had a background like that, because for her, she went to church. It was her safe place because she knew she was going to go to hell, and she tried to do everything she could to try and not. So that's why she went to church and stuff like that. So it's kind of interesting. It hasn't come up yet, but I wonder, will it ever come up? Their extended family, like what about Marty's family? What about Wendy's family? Like we heard a little bit about her dad. That's about it. Then there's a whole situation about the Kansas City mob. I did like that, like, because even later on describes it as him playing chicken when Frank is there and everything, and you had your boy Marty be like, how about you back up and let me do my fucking job, let me do this. You're up here like saying this and that, like what's he gonna do? Is he gonna be here to beat me up or kill me? Let me do my job, let me get this done. I know the deal didn't work out the way you wanted to, but your people are still gonna get looked after and taken care of. I promise you that. Just let me alone so I can do my damn job, and kind of standing up to them and stuff. I was like, yo, Marty, like I said, I brought it up earlier, like when the time comes he can get vicious, you know. And the last thing we see is them blowing up Marty's office in here. So that's going to be something that they contend with in the future. But, you know, it seems like Wendy's less worried about it. You know, another issue they still have to deal with. It's like when one problem is solved, another issue is coming up. And there's also the whole like Snell situation because of Darlene. Like, you know, it's like, I'm not letting that kid stay with that woman. So we're going to be dealing with that soon enough. But that means going to war with two other people. And it's like, if the cartel is all about keeping their whole situation going, I'm sure it's going to mean, you know, Because now, Wendy's like, we're in an advantageous position because it's like, yeah, they're going to look after us because we've earned their gratitude. But even then, it's like, gratitude can only get you so far. There's going to be a limit before they might just feel like you're not worth keeping around or making sure you're safe anymore, So I'm also curious to see what that means now for Ruth, because it's like she was initially supposed to be taking over the business once he left. But now that he's still staying, he's going to be operating stuff, not unless it's going to be Wendy taking stuff over more. So I'm curious to see what that does for Ruth in the future. Because initially she was all about wanting more responsibility, and now that he's not leaving, will that kind of piss her off or what? Or does that mean going forward Marty would kind of give her more responsibility? Like I said, it'd probably be more of a lot, like, because normally it's Marty kind of being the more hands-on about the situation. So maybe going forward it'd be him, Wendy, and Ruth potentially. But also, what does that mean going forward about the Cade situation? Because no matter what, that was still her dad, and he died. He was killed. Granted, she doesn't know that they are they handled the situation they did, because the situation was just to pay him off with a $500,000 for him just to go away. Like, she always knew that he'd probably end up coming back eventually anyway, but it's her dad, so like, probably not in her mindset did she really know that he was killed because of them. And even then, that was more Wendy than it was Marty. So I'm curious to see that dynamic too, because obviously we saw her sit down and kind of have dinner with them, and it's like, is this how everything kind of is, kind of their little dysfunctional family? And that's kind of another thing too. I think it's kind of funny, like Wendy being like, there's no way we're going to leave Zeke with Darlene and the snail. She's messed up, she's deranged, which she is, but it's like, you're saying she's so much worse than your already messed up family. Once again, it's just kind of like, you talk about Marty having blinders on, it's almost like Wendy is oblivious. Her and Marty are oblivious in some regards, like I brought up earlier, like Charlotte, like calling out their hypocrisy and stuff like that. But I'm curious, will Ruth be mad about the whole Cade situation? Her dad was kind of a, like I said, shithead, so like I still miss him and everything, but I don't know if she'd blame them for taking him out. To be fair, he was too much of a wild card. He would just do stuff just to do it, just because like it's in his blood, being a Langmore and stuff like that. So I don't know. I'm also curious too, because we have never met this mysterious employer. Hopefully, like in the future, we finally get to meet them. I did like that when after the whole attempt on the snail, it was like you had Marty being super pissed, because it's like, your employer not only just fucked us, he fucked himself, because he put himself over a barrel with this whole $50 million. Like, him going to the approach he did, like Marty got super pissed. It's like, you clean up your own shit, and walks away. And then Wendy's kind of like, don't worry, he'll handle it. So I thought that was kind of neat. I'm just very curious to see who this person would be, like who's the man behind the mask. And about the whole casino thing going forward, like I'm curious to see what that dynamic is like, operating that whole thing. Obviously, like if there is a next season, will it kind of build up like season 1 to 2? Like, is there going to be like a little time in between, or is it going to be a good amount of time where it's like, oh, we show back up and it's like, oh yeah, the casino's built and trying to operate under these new conditions, like maybe new characters and old characters returning to, what that dynamic is going to be like, trying to keep everything copacetic. I've been using that word a lot lately. I was touching on it earlier, but the big question is like, who will the family be next season? And especially where we've seen Jonah kind of progress. He's kind of turned more into like the protector of the family. He's willing to kind of do whatever he needs to, because he's kind of filling the shoes of Marty, but if need be, he can pull the trigger if need be. He had talked about the fact that earlier in the season, he'd been like, yeah, he thought like if the time came for it, Charlotte would have pulled the trigger without hesitation. She would have been able to do stuff, because he felt bad, because like he was willing to pull the trigger. He's even being like, Mom, would you even look at me as a murderer? Which is interesting. Now I'm sitting there thinking about that, because like now because it even came up later on, because Wyatt ended up talking to Charlotte about it, being like, yeah, your dad wasn't a murderer, which is like, well, we know that technically he is, because he's lying about the whole Mason situation to everyone. It's like, oh, he killed Mason, it wasn't by choice. But then now, like, Wendy has blood on her hands, and it's like, man, it's like, now that's so true about them, because like, oh, would you ever look at me as a murderer? It's like, well, both your parents are murderers now, so how does that make you feel? I mean, granted, they don't know, but I'm so curious to see, because going forward, I'd kind of get that feeling from Marty, like he'd go farther and further into the wayside of not trying to get mixed up and all of that anymore. I mean, he had no choice being the number guy and kind of still being in Ozark and everything, but still, Wendy, like I said, like how much further would she go? Like what happens to her and Marty? Like they had their problems and they came together, like, during season one. I even thought it was kind of pretty neat that even like Charlotte was kind of like, why we even come back? And because they were the ones that convinced Wendy to come back at the end of last season. So, and that whole issue coming up again, I thought was kind of interesting. But it's like, where will Marty and her stand? Like, the more she does more dark stuff, is he more likely to pull away from her or what, And so, and also Charlotte, what does she want to do? Because at the end of it, her and Wyatt have no idea what they plan to do, especially in Wyatt's case, because it's like, well, what do I do about school? Ruth, it's like, well, now that Cade's going, like, 3 and Ruth are the only family he has left now. But it's like, yeah, your cousin killed your dad and your uncle, but then you find out she also did it because it was like he was writing out to the cops, but not also that he was going to kill Charlotte's dad. So it's kind of like, it's not like my dad was a good guy. Like if he's a bad guy, I got it. We all do kind of terrible things, but he was about to go to another level, and so it kind of leaves him kind of conflicted. But he does still go like, in a similar vein as Ruth with Cade, which to be fair, like Russ is a lot less of a problem than Cade was, and just being like, no matter what, I still love you, so that was kind of nice. His dad, he still loves his dad no matter what the circumstances. And then there's also the biggest thing we have to worry about going forward too, is the Petty thing, because he is dead now because his car was discovered like right there at the end of the season. It was Cade who did it, but that's still probably going to lead to some investigations, probably going to look into Marty and stuff like that, because his family's going to be the number one suspects, because it's like, oh, he was literally investigating you guys. So everyone's going to get caught up in this investigation, especially because Evans, his ex, will be so adamant about it. It's kind of interesting because that's why like Petty went so hard after Ruth. It's because it's like, oh, you killed the man I love, Russ. So it's like, in payback, I'm going to screw you over hard. So I'm wondering if that's what's going to happen in that regard. I mean, it makes you wonder, will we get a completely new FBI agent to kind of take over things? So what that kind of means for the investigation going forward. Because at this point in time, the only person who knows about Petty being dead is Ruth. And that was a big thing this season too. Like everyone waiting to the last second to tell everyone about everything. It's like, oh, she's laundering that 1.8 million. It's just kind of, you did that without telling me. The fact of the matter is, I hadn't learned from Helen about that. And she's asking questions, getting all suspicious and stuff of me, even though it's something I have no idea about. It's like, oh, Marty's making these decisions. Like, everyone waited to the last second. Like, the whole Wilkes thing about him saying, making that deal with Wendy that, let's run away together, leave Marty. Like, she didn't bring that. Did she ever bring that specifically up? Like the whole, like, oh, he's saying you're going down. It's like, oh, when'd you learn this? A couple of days ago, and you wait till now to tell me? Yeah. So it's like they still had that situation. Communication was kind of terrible last season and this season. I'm curious to see if it still would be that way going forward, especially because of the issues between Marty and Wendy just escalating even more. I don't know. There's a lot of interesting factors with that. But I mean, when it's all said and done, I actually don't know if this is coming back for a third season. I'd assume. I'd really like it to. I mean, to be fair, like, it literally just came out today at the time of me recording this. Really know for sure if it's coming back for, a third season. Maybe not. I don't know how Netflix does this whole thing. I feel like they waited a little while before they go, oh yeah, that's getting greenlit for another season or something. So I don't know. We'll wait and see. I'd be very interested to see what they would do with a third season. I think it'd be wild and crazy. The situations the Bird family would find themselves in. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.